So good evening, everybody. Welcome to our Anamkara Thursday night meditation program. And with all my heart, with all my love, I welcome you to our program this evening. We're going to begin with centering meditative practice. Very simple, just calming the mind and body. And a great practice to use anytime. And it's a simple pacing of the breath, and we use the harmonium to accompany that. And with the breathing, there's an ancient mantra. And it's a mantra that is known across traditions because it's the invocation of the pure awareness of being. I am. And so it's said in this ancient Sanskrit mantra that the breath comes in with the sound ah, silently. And it goes out with the sound hum, silently. So we tune into it silently in the mind. The ah as the breath is coming in. The hum as the breath is coming out. And that's allowing our awareness to shift to simply being, just being. Because everything that typically comes after I am is all the doings and identifications of the mind. So we drop all of that, and right there is awareness. And as we settle into that awareness, as we remove the conditioned mind from that awareness, then we can begin to experience, oh, that awareness, that's boundless awareness. That awareness of I am is the awareness of I am the infinite. I am boundless. I am that. That I am. Ah, hum. So we'll do this practice with the mantra for a few minutes and just allow the body to relax into that. Nothing it has to do other than what it's familiar with, breathing. Nothing the mind has to do except rest on the breath and sort of hear the ah as the breath is coming in and the hum as the breath is going out. The breath comes in with the ah and then hum silently in the mind. Inhaling, exhaling. Inviting the breath to slow and deepen. Ah, as the breath comes in. And hum silently as the breath goes out. And just continuing to breathe. Breathe with that awareness. The background awareness of I am. It's the background awareness of being. Being expansive. Wider than the sky. That's the nature of your being. Awareness becomes focused when it collapses around what we're identified with. What's poking us in the moment, a pain, a pleasure, a person, whatever it might be, we become something in relationship to that. We become, our awareness contracts to take the form of whatever that is we're identified with. Husband, wife, son, daughter, roles that we play, all these different things. They're all little containers that we put our I am awareness in, and then it stays there. And we've done that for lifetimes. So it's not like we can just go like this and all that conditioned mind is gone. It has a momentum to it. But fortunately, the awareness itself, it was never bound. Its infinitude always remains. We lose awareness of the infinite when we become so identified with what's finite, our individuality. And the individual mind, it doesn't see itself everywhere. It sees others. It sees separation. It sees differences. It sees likes and dislikes, fears, things that annoy it. That's its domain. All of that is held in this sublime awareness of being. So the process of coming more and more deeply to know that, to live from that, is a process both of purifying some of those contracted identities, because some of them are quite distorted. They don't serve well. So the spiritual unfolding of the truth of who we are also transforms the vehicles of mind and body, so they can be more transparent to the truth of who you are. If they're all jammed up, then the light shines through and it just projects the jam. So it clears that. Mantra clears that. Sitting in the with the ability to just step back, detached and aware. Just watch the stream of the mind without identifying with anything that's in it. One of the most potent practices. And it gets strengthened over time, so that no matter what is going through there, we can come to that posture of awareness. So we start out in a much more concrete way. What's our meditation posture? Is it steady? Is it upright? Is it open? These are going to be reflections of what our awareness are. So when we both practice having a better sitting posture for meditation, we're also cultivating a shift in the posture of our consciousness, the posture of our mind. As you can see, there's certain ways that our mind, as it becomes identified with something, it affects the body. It may contract it, it may make it defensive, we may put on some armor for it. All kinds of ways that identification is hitting the poor body as well. So we practice in these ways that both free the body of that conditioning, as well as it's freeing the mind. So every time, even doing something as simple as what we were just doing with the breath, allowing the breath to slow and deepen. Well, that deepening and slowing of the breath is congruent with a more relaxed state. We know all kinds of physiological research on how it impacts the vagus nerve, how it reduces inflammation. It's why meditative practices related to it decrease blood pressure and all these other things, right? Well, it's the body resonating with, I can be simply relaxed. I don't have to be on guard. I don't have to perform. I don't have to do anything. I can simply be. Be present. Be aware. And then we're inviting the mind to let go. So it follows the breath, just watching the breath. And it's following it with the as the breath comes in, the hum as the breath goes out. They're simply aware, I am. If anything comes up after that, we just let it go. Come back to the breath, back to hum. Letting go and letting go. So it turns out, the process of becoming free, the Eastern traditions called, liberation, enlightenment. It's all about letting go. Letting go. Letting go and letting go. More and more deeply, more and more profoundly, we let go of the conditioned mind and all the little identities that go with it. And then, more and more, we come to rest in the foundational awareness. It's the awareness that already holds our entire existence. The universal I am is the root of limited I am. If there wasn't the universal, there would be no limitation. There would be no existence. Without the existence of the pure I am, there wouldn't be the existence of the ephemeral I am. So we come home to what is already there by letting go and letting go and letting go. And along the way, we get insights. That light of consciousness illuminates. Why is it so hard to let go of certain things? Why am I so attached? How am I so identified with this or that it just rocks my meditation or engages my mind all throughout the day? No, we let it go and let it go and let it go over and over and over. And that's part of what it is that ripens our awareness. And Kundalini is the awareness, the power of awareness to know the infinite as ourself, the power of the infinite to create what it is to be finite. So it's not something that's unique to yoga. That term is unique to yoga in Sanskrit. But we could call it Holy Spirit, we could call it Shekinah, we could call it Grandmother Spirit, we could call it the Great Goddess, the Divine Mother, all kinds of names. But to understand that that is the power that is already creating and sustaining our existence as we are, that root awareness, that root consciousness supports everything about the life of the body and the mind in its ordinary functioning. What we're really dialing into is that it has the power to illuminate and draw us into the direct experience of our infinitude of being. When we're ready to let go and let go and let go. And that's the process of ripening that the ancient texts would talk about that really occurs over lifetimes. But it's our readiness and our intuition that there's more to who we are, more to this life than all these ordinary ways of being in the world and consuming and having, the pleasure of this, and then it passes, and then we go look for something else, and then we got to earn some money to buy something more to have a bigger pleasure of this other thing. It's this on and on and on. That's the nature of the conditioned mind and the world it lives in. But when we start to realize and start to really recall, because in a sense, all experiences of coming into the presence of our own sublime, divine self is remembering. We're not creating the experience. We're remembering. It's the antidote to the dismembering that happened when we became identified with a limitation. It means we severed our experience of being infinite in order to know what it is to be finite. It wasn't a mistake. That's how this whole experience of creation and the power that creates it, our own power, also known as Kundalini Shakti, operates. It both gives us the experience of what it is to be solely finite. Explore that for as many lifetimes as we choose, until we're ripe and ready to go, I'm done with that. There's something more I want to know. That's the stirrings of that consciousness that can then really unfold in its fullness, in its completeness, so that we can know the infinite as ourself through this innate power of consciousness. But there's a ripening process. Part of the confusion that's happened around Kundalini and some of the misunderstandings about it, well, we can understand it, these distortions that occurred, and they occurred across all spiritual traditions with the rise of sort of a toxic masculine. What a wonderful author, Riane Eisler, wrote a book called The Chalice and the Blade. And it speaks about what happened in this shift from go back 15, 20,000 years, even 10,000 years ago, where goddess-centered consciousness and worship and honoring the divine feminine was really in its fullness. And then as things shifted and a kind of a toxic masculine attitude came in that humanity has been exploring for too many thousands of years, it's time for the return of the goddess. Literally, wonderful author, actually had been an old friend, Dr. Whitmont, wrote, a Jungian analyst, wrote a book on the return of the goddess you might find interesting. But this time calling to shift that pendulum swing back into the divine feminine, because that's where relatedness is, connectedness, the loving, the compassion that embraces all beings, all life, that sees that to destroy the environment is to destroy yourself and the very fabric of existence. So that's part of what's being summoned and invoked in this evolutionary phase for humanity. But going back several thousands of years, we could see is this toxic masculine and what Riane Eisler calls the dominator mode. So that domination, exploitation, control really became at the forefront. Fortifications, armies, all kinds of things came in that weren't there before. And it shifted, and it even shifted people's relationship to the divine. Some traditions, the feminine was just expelled. She became known as the abomination. The goddess was expelled. The priestesses who were revered became persecuted as witches. This is all part of that shift that happened. And we see it in the yoga tradition because some of the masculine yogic, dominated by men doing their practices, where it started to write about having to beat at the door of Kundalini. You had to force her to awaken, and you had to do all these forceful pranayams and exercises and all that to prod it awake. And they're the same texts, of course, that talk about how dangerous it can be because it may blow up in your face. Well, if you approach the divine like that, no wonder she might not like it so much. So we have to set those aside. So the teachers I study with, gracefully, all talked about worshiping, honoring, seeing the great goddess as the highest and approaching her with that love, that reverence, that respect, and seeing there's a natural process of ripening of the evolution of consciousness that prepares us for that awakening quite gracefully. We don't have to do it forcefully. We don't have to create negative side effects from such things. But the practices that we do when we think about ripening, it's a beautiful metaphor. Say we're coming near the end of the summer, and you might have some tomatoes on your tomato plants. Can you go out and make them ripe? No, you can't. You have to wait and make sure the conditions are right for ripening. The plant is healthy, it's nourished, it gets enough sun. Sun. What ripens us? Oh, the light of the divine. To come into the company of the divine through practice, through dedication, through creating the sacred space in our lives that says, oh, this is where I go to bask in the light of the infinite. It's that light of the infinite that awakens the fullness of the presence of the light already within us. So ripening is such literally a graceful task. Right? And if we keep the clutches of the ego mind and its ambitions and how fast it wants to get it done, and can it be done yesterday and all that, set that aside. Just sit in the light of the infinite, the light of the divine. You can ripen like that. That's the power of that. Is that power? Oh, that's the light of love. That's the light of love that embraces it. Right? That's the divine saying, oh, yes. Yes. Come home. Come home to me. Come home to yourself. That's ripening. That's awakening. It's not about powers. The yogis got sidetracked and we're doing these practices to try and develop this psychic power, that kind of power. Power? Power? Who's hungry for power? Oh, that's the ego mind that's hungry for power. Because it's disconnected from the infinitude of being, the root of all powers. That's why the great sages, they achieved enlightenment. They said, oh, the greatest power, oh, that's love. That's what transforms. That light of love. So we bask in that as we do the practices. We approach it mindfully. Mindfully means we are aware that as we sit to do practice, we're opening ourselves to the living presence of the divine. That our practice is sacred. It's the most sacred thing, perhaps, that we do. Practice. That loving awareness. Whether the practice is sitting meditation, whether the practice is serving others as God, seva, whether the practice is serving our family members with love, serving our communities with love. These are the practices that transform the conditioned mind so that it can be a true carrier of that sublime wisdom, that exquisite love carried into the world. Each and every one of you is the Holy Grail. Do you treat yourself like that? It's part of what has to be transformed. How do we look at ourselves? And how do we treat ourselves? Because at best, that's how we'll treat others. So we do the practices to clear the identification with the limited mind, because the fullness of being, the fullness of your divine nature, always, always here and now. Always fully present here and now. So we let go and let go. And now we're going to do that by the great mantra, Om Namah Shivaya. It means simply, I bow to, I honor the auspicious one, the divine within. The meaning is the least important thing about the mantra, but it's the aspect of mantra that the mind can actually relate to. Because the mind relates to sounds, thoughts, those kinds of things. Mantra is a carrier wave of the Shakti, the power of consciousness to know itself in its infinitude. That's the power. That's what you're really basking in as you repeat, whether aloud, as a chant, silently, Om Namah Shivaya, silently, once as the breath comes in, Om Namah Shivaya, silently, as the breath goes out. Bathe the whole body, the mind, everything in that sound form of the divine. And really enter it, meaning become that. I am the mantra. I am that sound. I am that throb of the infinite. And then watch it dissolve as it dissolves the mind, and all there winds up being. Oh, it's unspeakable, beyond words, beyond everything. Go there. That's the mystery you want to know. Just resting in the stillness, in that profound silence, the bare awareness of simply being all. Rest there. So we end with this prayer that may all our practices truly benefit everyone, and may all beings know complete freedom from suffering. Namaste. Of stillness and silence, the throb of mantra. It's a throb of the love of the infinite, reaching into the world of the finite to carry us home to the truth of who we are. It's really a love song. The ordinary mind, well, it sees ordinariness everywhere, sees others everywhere. It projects otherness. Oh, but your divine sight sees only one, sees only itself, and it sees through the eyes of love, embracing all, no one, nothing left out. The highest truth, so many traditions. Nashivam vidyate kvachit. There's nothing but the consciousness of the auspicious one. Ein od milvado. There's nothing that is not God. So with this precious human birth, with a vehicle that can know that and then serve that by walking that knowing, that steady wisdom into the world. This is the gift of this life, wherever we may find ourselves. The one is there, always, here, now. So we awaken to the divine embrace.